to listen to my dad Joe and Uncle Justin talk about sports?
The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop, which have been serving the greater West Lawn area delicious food for over 70 years. You are listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
Boring.
A weekly podcast about sports since 2011,
Don't you ever get tired of being wrong all the time?
with a focus on football.
Second to go. This guy has had some years.
Al, I've got to tell you, in a pressure situation, I don't know if I have ever seen anybody be better than Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. Wow, what a drive.
4th and 1. Burrow trying to keep it down. Gets spun down, gets it away. Incomplete. Rams down. Running down to celebrate with a defensive play.
And guess who? Guess
Of
who?
course,
I mean, you don't even have to think about it.
pointing to the ring finger.
When everything was on the line for the Rams, yes, we know it was Aaron Donald.
But the Rams were built to win the Super Bowl, and they have sealed the deal.
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff. Ho, 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 and hello, everyone, and welcome to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. You haven't heard from us a lot since July. We were back once and then disappeared for a month again. But here we are. This is episode 364, take 3, as we were supposed to do this 2 weeks ago. Things got a little rough. It's that time of the year. It's that time of the year. We know, especially us with kids. Things get to us that don't normally get to us, unfortunately. And, to be safe, we didn't have a show 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Then last week, just busy.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah,
We're supposed to get it done, and I just said to Justin, I was like, hey, this one's on me. Just too busy. Didn't get it done.
That's all right.
Took the week off.
Before it was on me. So,
but we're here, and I'm glad to be here with you, Justin. Thanks for joining me for this show. I'm glad we could get together.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Notorious December birthday here. Probably not as bad as my cousin Christine, who is on the 25th.
Oh, man.
But I do get to share this day thanks to this generation of Mays, my cousins, their kids, to share a birthday with me. So happy birthday also to Gabby and Ansley celebrating today.
I knew that, but I had forgotten that.
And just so I don't forget it at the end of the show, as to not be ridiculed endlessly, happy early birthday to my dad. One of the diehard listeners of the show when he doesn't fall asleep in front of the computer. Happy early birthday to him. He'll be celebrating tomorrow, and
He wasn't celebrating today.
Well, we'll get into that, but I mean, it really started with me.
You can take that either way because it's your birthday, or due to things we'll speak of later.
Honestly, neither of us had a great few hours before our birthday in terms of sports action.
Right.
Things didn't go great. In one of the games we'll talk about briefly, my Dolphins unfortunately lost in Buffalo to the Bills, one of the handful of teams that I absolutely despise. It literally happened like 15 minutes before it was my birthday, and I know that because I stayed up like an idiot to hope maybe they could hold on or come back, but of course that's not the way it worked out, and Buffalo kicked a late field goal to end Miami's chances to win that game, and now the Dolphins are on a 3-game losing streak and sit at 8-6. And honestly, and we didn't say this on the show because we haven't been on in a few weeks, but I had said to you, my dad, multiple people, this is a rough 3-game stretch. I just need them to win one.
Right.
And they didn't get it done. And the one that's most frustrating, and I said this to you before the show, was the one last week against the Chargers. Because of the 3, that was the easiest one and should have been the one you win, and they just looked bad.
The Niners are darn good. The Bills are darn good. The Chargers are okay.
Average, above. I shouldn't
Right.
say average at best. They're above average. They beat the Dolphins,
Absolutely.
but
That's
they're not a great team.
I
Whereas I believe the Bills and 49ers are top 2 or 3
Yes.
in their respective conferences.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that's going out on the limb
Yeah.
too much.
I agree.
So that's why the Dolphins needed that Chargers game. You needed to win one of those 3. And when you didn't beat the Chargers, you had to beat the Bills. And now you've lost 3 in a row. And now you have to basically win out to cement
you win out, you're in.
Oh, they're definitely in. They probably only have to win 2 of the 3.
They win 2, they're probably in.
And they're all winnable games.
Right.
I'm not sure of the orders, but it's Packers, Patriots, Jets.
Yeah.
Patriots?
I think Patriots are the last one.
Or the Jets the last one.
I don't know. I just saw it.
I can't remember what the order is. But
I
you have
think-
to
it's
win.
the Jets. The Jets are the last
Yeah, I
one.
thought it was the Jets.
Yeah, because they're at the Patriots and then they host the Jets, I believe.
Well, they have Packers.
Yes, yeah. Sorry, I meant the last 2.
Oh,
I
So
was skipping the
it's
Packers now.
host Packers, go to New England, host the Jets.
Right. And to be honest, are the Packers the most winnable game there?
I don't know. I mean, we're going to have to get into that.
According to the, like, I don't know if it was FPI or whatever it is, but the analytics one I saw had the Patriots as the one they're least likely to win.
Really?
I think because they're on the road. I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
Like, and it was like 45%, or it was in the mid to high 40s. So like, essentially a toss up. I was a little surprised that it wasn't like, in that they weren't in the 50 to 55% chance range. Like, because I think they're better than the Patriots, even if you're telling me they're going to New England, especially after I just watched them in Buffalo and not lose because of the weather. Like the weather was not the factor there.
Yeah, I didn't see any of the late games. Had a birthday dinner with the family, not at the kitchen table, downstairs in the living room where Kelly had pulled out a bedroom mattress for the girls to lounge on while the 4 of us ate dinner and watched the Polar Express.
Oh, that's
because
awesome.
we hadn't watched it this year, and the girls are begging. Kelly and I, up until we had kids, had always watched it the day we decorated, which usually was Black Friday for many, many years, up until recently when Justin has forced me to move that to October 15th. But if anyone is like tuning in for the first time, they're just like, these guys are weird. They don't know our inside humor and jokes or anything. But so I didn't see the late games, and I know there were some crazy endings, but there were some crazy endings early too.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about all of those. We'll start Thursday and Saturday, but really, I think we have to rewind back a week and 2 weeks, because 2 weeks ago you went to the Big Ten championship game.
I did, and it was a blast. I highly recommend it. Obviously, my rooting interest was none, like in that game. I mean, it would have been cool for Purdue to win, but I didn't really want Purdue. So this is the weird thing. I was rooting for Purdue, I guess, but I didn't want Purdue to win because that meant Penn State was unlikely to go to the Rose Bowl.
Right.
And so like I didn't really want that to happen. But it was kind of good. Like Purdue hung around. They showed that they were a pesky team and probably the best team in the West,
Right.
And Michigan did what they do, and they just kind of weathered the storm and then did fine. But it's a cool experience. Indianapolis, if you've ever been there for like sporting events, like everything is right downtown. Like all the restaurants, the convention center with the fan festing, which was super cool. Like we got to like kick field goals and like run 40 times and things like that. I believe my 40 time was in the like between like right around like 5.25, 5.35, which I was really pleased about. More pleased that I didn't fall flat on my face by tripping at some point, and I did not like pull a hamstring. So, but you got the kick, and they had the throw. It was just, they had cool stuff everywhere. It was a lot of fun. So like I recommend that. It's my second time going to the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, well, and crazy
Yes,
enough,
yes.
you have never seen Ohio State play in that game.
Right. So the matchups I saw are kind of crazy. I saw Michigan State, Iowa.
Yeah. Michigan State blew the doors off of them, right?
No,
Oh, no,
it
that was a good game.
Right. It was
That
a
was
good
a good game.
where I was holding up like a goal line stand, and Michigan State, the guy gets in on like a third like effort
lunge,
and like
yeah.
reached across. It was such a cool game, and we were like, you want to talk about? I had even less of a rooting interest in that one because it didn't
Well,
affect
yeah,
Penn State at
who
all.
cares?
Like
Yeah.
it was just like we were just there for a good time. And
Was that like
I hope
2014?
it was 2015.
2015.
Because the next year,
Year too early.
right? The next year, I was with the same group of guys. Well, mostly the same group of guys in Atlanta for the SEC championship game where I saw Jalen Hurts as a freshman, and they, Penn State won the Big Ten the next year. So I did my part to set in motion the Penn State winning the Big Ten the next year by going to the Big Ten championship game this year. So you're welcome. I did my part.
Appreciate it.
If it happens again, I'm gonna start booking like like
Hey,
every
other year.
It's just a cool thing, and like as a fan of college football, it's a cool stadium because it's a massive stadium, and it just has a roof over it. Like the only other dome that I've been in is the Alamo Dome, which is also cool, but is much more like a big arena. Does that make sense? Like
Sure.
it had more of a big like a really big arena feel. But like this is probably like 50% bigger than the Alamo Dome. I'm guessing at those numbers. Like this feels like a regular NFL style stadium, just with a roof over the top of it. But it was cool. It was fun. I got to go with my dad, and it was just a fun trip.
Yeah, that's really cool that you got to go there again. Maybe one year you or I or both of us will get to see Penn State play in that game.
I can't imagine. And I said that to my dad while we're sitting there. I'm like, look, like it is fun, and like it would be fun to see Michigan get upset, but like I know that's not good for Penn State. But like it would still be cool. Like if it's going to happen, it would be cool to be there. Like
Right.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Yeah.
Like, but at the same time, it's like whatever. But like I'm like I can't really wrap my head around being at one of these games with the emotional investment that I would typically have at a game.
Right.
And he agreed. He's like, oh my gosh, because even when we go to Penn State, we're like Penn State, Michigan State. And I'm still like emotionally invested in that game. To go to games where you're not can be fun sometimes. I wouldn't want to do it like every week.
Right.
Like that's not what I'm looking for every week. But like to go to see stadiums or to get to see things, like it's not bad for that because we can have enough fun watching it just as
Right,
it is.
because at the end we're football fans. We have our rooting interest, but we just will watch football all the time.
Yeah.
Like we always said, like when we win the lottery,
Oh gosh.
bowl games, championship games, rivalry games, like high school games,
this was
like
probably like
everything.
15 years ago, but like I think it was like Cooper Tires or someone ran like a promo, and it was like you go to 7 bowl games in 7 days with Kirk Herbstreit, and they like fly you on like a private jet to like all 7 games.
Man, that would
I'm
be
like,
amazing.
Oh my gosh,
Right?
like that would be incredible. And it ended with like one of the like with some of the big games, you know, like it was, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. When I said to my dad, I said this yesterday. I was like, can you imagine if we would have been sitting up at Penn State for Penn State hosting Clemson this weekend? Like, oh, great article by Audrey on the logistics of that.
Yes.
But
So,
Pat Kraft is all in on it. Will be here. We will make it work.
Well, and I had forgot 2 years ago in the COVID season, they had a home game at Beaver Stadium on like December 12th or something like that.
Right.
So it's happened. I know there were issues, but there's contingencies being put in place, or there's plans being put forth because it's going to happen. That's something else that has happened since we were last on the show. The highest, largest level, biggest college football at the FBS level is
going to go
finalizing
to the system that all the other levels of football use.
Getting closer is in its final years of a 4-team playoff. This year, which we already know the 4 teams, and then next year. Yeah. And then for the 2024, the fall of 2024 season, that will end with a 12-team playoff, which I haven't even wrapped my head around it, mostly because we got to go through all of next year yet. It's still a year away, but the best thing that it sets out, Penn State should be loaded in 2024.
Yes.
Because all those freshmen this year and then the classes that are incoming
20 that got significant playing time this year
are all going to be juniors or redshirt sophomores, true sophomores, whatever, for this class that's coming in, they should be hopefully able to go toe to toe with Michigan, Ohio State,
Right.
and win enough other games, regardless of what happens with the two of them. Well, I guess we'll be divisionless by then, so I don't even know if we'll even play both of them. Hopefully, at least one of them. But hopefully, Penn State is at top 2 or 3 in the Big Ten, that you're getting one of those 12 tickets. And the Athletic, Audrey Snyder, and the writers there have done an excellent job of updating every week. What would it look like this season? Penn State would have been in and would be playing. Was the final one?
I think it was Clemson.
Was the final one Clemson?
I
Was it
thought so.
hosting Clemson?
Yeah, I think we're 8 and
Beaver
9.
Stadium hosting Clemson today. Would have been today, right?
Yesterday or today.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah, probably not on Sunday. They probably would have done it Saturday.
Talk about a
But
win or suck birthday that would have been. I guess it probably would have been yesterday. Yeah. But it's coming. There's going to be mid-December eventually in the next 5 years, 6 years, you would think. Honestly, I hope it doesn't happen, because maybe that means Penn State's one of the 4 of the bye,
right.
which would be even bigger. There's still some things to work out. I think there should be and maybe will be changes. Did you see the Joel Klatt thing about why don't we just make the Rose Bowl the championship game every year? It's the biggest name. It's the one that people want to play in. Make that the championship game, and then all the other games should be played on the college campuses.
Right. And I saw a thing that says they're probably, so in 2026, they were looking to bump the college season ahead a week.
A week, yeah.
And they may look to do that in 2024 because things like,
there's a lot of,
and now this is Penn State centric here, but it applies, the problem applies, but differently to other schools. Penn State's winter graduation was yesterday.
can you imagine?
And those dates, like Penn State's winter graduation is already set for this weekend for 2 years from now. Like those dates are set years in advance.
Right.
And so now there were a lot of college graduations this weekend. Congratulations to all those graduates. But I'm sure there are some last weekend too. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like every single college is this weekend and none are last weekend. I know that's not how it works. So, but there's lots of logistics, but they will make it work.
They have to. The money is too big.
Right.
And everyone wants this. It's such a like, I know there'll be a little things to complain about and nitpick, but like, we are finally getting what we've wanted since the 90s.
Yeah.
It took 30 years to get there, but we're finally there. It's on the cusp. And the only thing that sucks even more is that the new college football video game was delayed to match. But it's okay. It's okay. We'll get through it. We've waited for that for a decade now. What's another year?
Yeah.
So, speaking of video games, so I opened my presents this morning from my wife and kids, and the last one, Kelly told me that it was not just from her and the girls. It was a combined effort from basically my entire immediate family. My parents, my sister and brother-in-law had a hand in it, and then Kelly's sister and my in-laws all chipped in one way or the other to get this to me. And I was like, what is this? Because it's like nondescript wrapped box, like birthday wrapping paper box, but like nothing gave it away. And I opened it up, and it was a MetaQuest 2. Oh, man. Which is the VR system for, I know there's the generation above us, our parents' generation is that listening to this is probably like, what is that? I have no idea what that is. But so thank you, Dad, for giving me something that you have no idea what it is. But Kelly's like, this is the months long process. So this started way back in the summer, because I was talking to our neighbor who also helped Kelly with this. He was talking just about this game called Vader Immortal. It's a Star Wars game, but you basically are lightsaber virtual reality fighting alongside and against Darth Vader, which like that is every kid's like dream growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Like, yeah, I want to fight Darth Vader, or just I want to use a lightsaber. And I had seen reviews on it when this came, because this isn't like really a new thing. The VR stuff has exploded over the last 5+ years or so. But it's one of those things that's expensive, and I'm like, I'm never gonna like say to Kelly, can I drop this amount of money on a VR system? Like, that's not even like I was like, that's not even
Right. It's
That's
not even on the radar.
That was not a battle I was willing to take. There's so many other things to bring up and purchases to be made and trips to be made and games to attend and things like that. I was like, that's a pipe dream right there. And then Jason brought his over Labor Day.
Okay.
And well, here Kelly had asked him to bring it to my parents' house for our picnic to try it out, and like they wanted me to see it and try it. Well, we didn't get to it until late, and then Corinne and Jason had to leave, and Jason was demoing it, and I think Amy played it a little, and then Haley got to play it, but then I never did. And Kelly's like, you didn't really seem super interested. And I was like, is this a mistake? But they ended up doing it anyways, and I tried it today. And I played the first. There's 3 episodes of Vader Immortal, and I only played the first one. It took me 40 minutes to play that, and they're like mini. They're not full blown games. They're going to spend tens of hours on or anything. So they're not, thankfully, not $60 a pop like regular video games are. But it was not just they just drop you in and give you a lightsaber and do a tutorial and then you fight. It's like a full story, which I wasn't expecting. And I was on like a starship, and I had to work controls, and I had to move around. And then Kelly and Natalie were laughing because I'm like climbing ladders, and to me I'm climbing a ladder, but you look in my living room and I'm just standing there going like, going like this, and like, it looks ridiculous, but it's really cool. And then I started to play this game called Beat Saber, which is essentially GarageBand in VR, and the 2 controllers that you hold becomes essentially lightsabers without calling them that. And I was like, I'm going to suck at this because I'm terrible at Guitar Hero when that was a thing, like 10, 15 years ago. I could not play that at all. But I'm pretty good at this. Or I think I'm willing to keep playing.
Right.
So I started playing that. It was so much fun. And it's one of those things I wasn't expecting. So it was a surprise in that manner. And didn't even, if you were to like guess what's in this box with this gift, I never would have guessed that. So
that's awesome.
It made it really fun. But it was a fun day. Because I woke up to this little note from my daughters, so that's always fun when you get homemade,
the big 3-8.
Yeah, homemade.
Welcome to the club.
Homemade gifts, and then Justin brought along some excellent.
Austin, for the record, Austin knows that's not on the helmet, but he says I think they should do it sometimes because he's like, I'm not drawing him a regular Penn State helmet. There's nothing on it.
You'd be done pretty quickly, right? So if you're watching, you can see the Penn State helmet and the Dolphins helmet. And he actually added on the Dolphins one. He's got the little Wilson-centric anything is possible.
Oh, yeah.
So all good things. So excellent artwork for me to hang up down here. And then last thing since I derailed this enough, is I want to brag on here that no one knows local sports better than we do.
That's right.
And I proved that this year in
on the record. You
MikeJagosports.com high school football predictions here in Berks County and into surrounding Lancaster, Lebanon County.
Shirt that you wear to all the games.
Yeah. You know what? Mike says he has some shirts, and he was like, "I'll give you one. I should on the back. I should like take it to Jason of a CBL and put like,
oh my gosh,
oh my." I'm doing that. I'm doing that.
Put it like a quote under it, like, I know you're gonna win or lose before you do, like something like that. Like,
awesome. But yeah, so excellent. 2 weeks ago with the trip to the Big Ten championship game, the college football playoff stuff coming out, Penn State being selected to go to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, awesome,
amazing. This is only what fifth time. Fifth time? I want to say fifth.
I know. I didn't realize they had been there like 100 years ago.
Right.
And
that was
until
the
Franklin
first.
made the joke that he's going to make sure that Clifford wasn't on that team too.
Right. So that was the first one. Then obviously I think 94 was next.
They won in 94.
Then 08 or
they lost.
08, 09.
They lost that
and
one.
then
and
16, 17, right?
Right.
So this is 5 then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it doesn't happen that often. That's why it's such a huge deal.
Well, and almost all those guys the players that typically, if we were playing in Capital One Bowl or we're playing in Outback Bowl or something like that, a bunch of those guys probably would have opted out. Almost all of them said, no, we're playing. And when asked why, they said, because it's the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, I love my team, and it's the Rose Bowl. Like, I want to play in the Rose Bowl, which is awesome.
Yeah, so I'm very happy about that. Very excited. The only person not playing is Porter.
Right.
That's healthy.
Right.
because
Right.
Parker Washington not
Right.
playing, but he's injured.
Right. He probably wouldn't have played anyway.
Nick Tarburton said he's not taking his extra year of eligibility. He will enter the NFL draft,
His-
but
his
he's playing
sixth
in the
year,
game.
to be
Right,
clear, right.
That's what I
Like,
mean.
he's
It was
already
an
filled his
extra
spot.
year.
Right,
It's
yeah.
not like he hasn't been here for
Right.
3, 4, 5 years. This is his 5th year. He's not taking the extra COVID year. He's going to the NFL draft, but after the bowl game.
Right.
So Penn
exactly.
State's getting back most likely Fashanu, Wallace, 2 offensive tackles,
right.
kind of a big deal,
Right.
and another running back to
Right,
help Singleton and Allen. Kevon Lee, who was the starter for a
Right.
while there, haven't used him, but
And-
all of them have been out since
And
October.
At times, in my opinion, the best out of the backfield in the passing game. Like
Right. So yeah, big things for Penn State, Utah. That'll kick. Is it 5 Eastern?
I thought it was 2
Or is-
Eastern.
Is it 2 Eastern?
I thought
Is
it
that
was
what
2.
it's
No, that can't
it's
be right.
11
It's
o'clock
5.
out
It's
there?
2 out there.
2
It's
out there. Yeah,
yeah.
okay, that's what I thought. 5-ish Eastern
Yeah.
against Utah at the Rose Bowl on January 2nd because January 1st is a Sunday. I feel like if Penn State's going to make the Rose Bowl, it's going to happen when January 1st is a
Yes.
Sunday because I'm pretty sure the 94 game was like that
I don't remember. I know my dad was there. My dad went to that one.
against Oregon.
Yeah.
Kijana.
And my dad was in the corner of the end zone that Kajana ran
Ran
to.
to?
Like, yeah. He was like 30 rows up, like right there. He's like, it was incredible.
I always think that the Penn State victory over Oregon was a bigger beatdown than it was. Like that was a
Yeah.
much more competitive game than I
Yes.
remember.
Yes.
I remember sitting at my grandparents' house on Spring Street watching that game
Yeah.
and how excited I was. I also remember being in the basement of my aunt and uncle's house in I think probably November for my uncle's birthday was the day Penn State. Well, maybe it could have been October then, because it was when Penn State beat Michigan
Okay.
in electric fashion
Yeah.
in '94, and that I remember most of that '94 season. That was obviously the Kerry Collins connection doesn't
Right.
hurt anything, but everyone our age and older remembers the '94 Penn State season. But I specifically remember being at my aunt and uncle's house watching Penn State beat Michigan, and I remember sitting at my grandmother's house on January 2nd, I guess. I think that's the 95 Rose Bowl
Yeah.
was played on January 2nd, watching Penn State, Oregon, and just freaking out because Kijano scored on like the second play or something like that. Yeah.
So a guy I work with, who's significantly younger, like as in when I started teaching, he was a student, not at Wilson, but he was, he graduated in the years after I started teaching. So he's significantly younger, but he's a Penn State grad. He has a Penn State like trivia, like daily calendar thing. And like every now and then, or it's like a fact or something like, but he'll send it. Like he sent it to me the other day. Like he sent me a picture and was like, "Hey, do you know this one?" And he like has the answer covered up. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's an easy one." Sometimes it'll be like, "What are the 5? Who were the last 5 defensive backs drafted from Penn State?" Like it's really hard. But this one was, what year did Penn State win the Rose Bowl? Or last win the Rose Bowl or something like that.
Right.
And I was like, well, it was the 95 Rose Bowl, the 94 season. Like I knew it immediately.
yeah.
And he was like, whoa, quick. I was like, yeah.
It's kind of a big deal.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's
I'm
the
also
thing.
like, I'm older than you. He was like born around those years. I was like watching that
decade
game,
old,
right?
yeah. See, I don't even remember discussing it. I don't remember. Did Penn State win that one 100 years ago? I don't even know.
I have no idea.
So I mean, has Penn State only won one of the
I
Rose
think
Bowls?
they've
they've
only
been?
won one, but I don't know.
Time to change
Hopefully
that.
two. Yeah,
Time to
hopefully two
change
soon.
that. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we finished 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now 1 week back was also a big deal. Something we have been talking about for a long time on this show. Unfortunately, we didn't get to talk about it in the lead up. We probably mentioned it a month ago when we had that show after the Wilson season ended, but we went to the Army-Navy game.
Oh my gosh, what an experience.
Another one of those things that I'm so happy I went and got to go. The situation surrounding all of us could have been better because my dad's having knee issues. I'm having back issues. Right. It just, but I wouldn't trade. Like, I'm so happy we got to go because the weather was nice. It wasn't raining.
It's the nicest weather I ever remember for that game.
Like, it was. I mean, I would have taken snow. I don't want to be cold, but like if it's snowing, I'm okay with it.
Especially if I know it's coming. Like
Right,
if I
if
know
we're
it's coming. Like if
prepared
they
for it.
say like, "Oh, it's not supposed to snow," and then it snows, that's like, "Oh crap!" But like, if I know it's coming, all right, I'll just prep for it. I'd be dressed for it. You deal with it.
And we saw, this is a game that's only been played 123 times. Like nothing, barely played at all. We saw the first ever overtime game
Insane.
in 123 meetings.
Right.
Well, 122 prior meetings, never gone to overtime. We got to see the first one to go to overtime. And not only that, we got to see a special teams touchdown.
Right.
And then in overtime, both teams scored on the first play of their possession.
I don't know if it was Ross Tucker. I feel like it was him. He was like, and it summed it up perfectly. It's like, I can't believe it was the first time it ever went to overtime because I feel like it goes to overtime every year I'm watching it. Like, like, because the games just always have that feel. But oh man, what a game!
But it was. I mean, we said this, and you can say this about a lot of games. It wasn't a great
Right. It wasn't
the
like
play
a flawless
itself
game.
wasn't perfectly
Right.
executed.
You don't watch that and think, oh, this is the pinnacle of football.
Right. And at least
In terms
not
of execution of the plays
right.
and types of
and both teams are limited for obvious reasons
Yes.
in the recruiting battle, and ones that have even just apparently made it even harder to get recruits to come to these schools. But we're not getting into that one. But it was a great game in terms of like special teams touchdown, low scoring defensive affair, going to overtime, then getting fireworks in overtime, a walk-off win, and a bitter rivalry. But honestly, every year it seems the game's almost secondary because there's so much other stuff going on. The other stuff is just so cool. I've never I remember in the weeks leading up to it talking about, so you and Jamie went, and it was me and my dad, so the four of us went together. But we were like, well, when do you want to leave? When do you want to go? Well, the game starts at the time we were saying 3:30. It was actually more like 3:10 or something like that. We're like, well, so we want to be there 3. We want to see the stuff at the beginnings. I don't know. You want to leave at like 11, like 12, and then you looked into it and you're like, walk-ons at 11:55, and I was like, the game's at 3:30.
I know.
So it's like, oh, we need to reevaluate. So walk-on actually was like 12:10. So we're like, all right, we should probably leave by 10. And that's what we did. We left by 10. And honestly, it wasn't too bad of a drive.
No.
And park at the link. We actually parked by Citizens Bank Park and walked there. But we got there just as the cadets were walking on. We missed just like maybe a battalion or two or whatever. But we saw the rest of it. Super cool. Then we got to see the midshipmen come on all together. That took an hour to watch both of those things. And then we got to mingle around, walk back out on the concourse and things. And the only thing that was like wow, that wasn't great was the three of us, me, you, and Jamie, trying to walk from one side of the stadium to the other underneath. That was at the south end zone or the north? No, it's the north end zone.
Yeah. I know next time to go out.
Never
Take the long route.
A cramped space that we were in.
It was
that like you couldn't move, and
so
I had to tell myself that I was gonna be okay and we were gonna move through it. And I was like, telling
yourself
I
that
didn't have
when
the
you're
girls
not
here.
100% sure it's actually true.
Well, I was like, what would I be doing right now if Natalie was with me or you had Austin?
I would have had to put him on my shoulders.
I could not believe it. But then we got back and we got to our seats an hour before kickoff. Why? Because of everything else going on.
Right.
You wanted to see the teams warming up. You wanted to see the teams take the field. You wanted to see
2 flyovers.
The 2 different flyovers from both parts of the armed forces.
Both
sets of paratroopers. Like they each had 5, 6, 7 people jump.
Unbelievable.
That's like insanity. And the Army flyover was a Chinook, a Black Hawk, and 2 Apaches.
Right.
Just flying over the stadium. And it was so cool because you could see them like circling. Like if you were watching through the stadium, you could see these military helicopters just circling. And then the Navy followed it up with Eagles, 4 of them flying over. And it's so cool because then at halftime, like all the pilots were there. They all just came, they just landed and came to the stadium, which is awesome. Yeah, paratroopers from both groups. Like it's just like so cool.
It was awesome.
All the video board stuff during commercials, excellently done. We saw Chevrolet rolled out a car and just like, like they're doing an advertisement for a truck. Okay. And they were like introducing like the Army family of the game. Everyone's like, that's cool. Well, the person driving the truck was their son who they hadn't seen like 15 months. So you got one of those military reunions that everyone loves. It happens all the time, but it never gets old. Like, and Kelly says that she's like, anytime that one of those pops up on social media, I watch it and I cry every time.
That's as it's happening. I'm like, this is awesome. And I'm like, I didn't even have to turn my head. I knew my wife was crying. Like, I'm like, but like, yeah, you're right. It's the one thing that never gets old. It was such a cool experience. Some of my friends asked me about how was it? I'm like, put it on your list, man. You got to do it. One of my friends was like, he's like, I'm not trying to butt my way in, but he's like, literally, he's like, next time you go to do it, keep me informed, because he's like, I'm in. I'm like, okay, all right,
Yeah, I would like to go again. I would like, it would be cool to go see it in Boston
That would
next
be
year.
cool.
I don't know if that's going to be possible.
Right. Well,
But-
I'm gonna have the Big Ten trip to
It's
Penn State the week
right,
before.
yeah. So but then it's also, it's not back in Philly until 2027.
Right. Where's it in
So,
2026?
So
I know
in
it's like,
one of the Baltimore Andover. It's either at
Okay,
FedEx
okay.
or not
Okay.
Annapolis. One's in DC and one's in Baltimore. I don't remember what the years are, but then it's up in the Meadowlands.
right. I know
in
it's
East
I
Rutherford.
know Meadowlands, DC, Baltimore and then Boston are all there.
It's Boston in 23,
Right.
then
Is it
either Baltimore, Orlando, or either DC or Baltimore in 24.
Oh, okay.
The opposite in 25,
Okay,
whichever one it wasn't, and then it's in East Rutherford in
Okay,
26.
Okay.
It's back in Philly in
So
27.
the thing is, like, Boston's tough just because the distance, but not out of the question, but tough. But the others are doable, not as convenient as Philly.
Not a
Philly
convenience
was super
store, no,
convenient.
yeah,
But
and we know our way around because we've been down there.
right, I've been to this. Like, I
Yeah,
didn't
you've
need,
been to the link a
didn't
million
need
times.
directions. Like, yeah, let's just go. Like,
You even, I shouldn't say the link. You've been to the Philly Sports
Right,
Complex a
right,
bunch. You've been
right.
to the link a few times. I've been to the link. This is probably my 4th trip to the link. Every other time I've been there for an Eagles game, rooting against them. Well, that's not true because I saw the Patriots play.
I think
there.
I've been to Link like 6 or 7 times. I think something like that.
You saw the snow game against the Lions. You're
Saw the
just
snow
talking
game,
about
yes,
that. Yeah.
yes.
So Army Navy was awesome. I'm disappointed that Navy lost, but it was cool to be there with your wife, the Army vet,
Right.
who got to see her team win.
I was pumped because like I didn't know like how into it she would be, which is stupid on my part because I know her and she is more competitive than I am. All right.
The best
Is
part
saying
was
something.
I got the tickets, and of course, I joined the Navy Blue
Right,
and Cold.
right.
So we were sitting in an area that was supposed to be Navy, but military families are
Right,
so
right.
interspersed and know so many people. There were plenty of Army people around, but we were in the Navy section.
Yes.
So it was great because every time something happened, she was opposite of like most of the people in the
Yes,
section. So I was just the whole time just needling her with just
Which-
obnoxious like just,
Thankfully, it wasn't like most football games at the link with regards to that. So,
right. Yeah.
like-
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was not like a
it's the
Philly crowd.
Yeah, there's the friendly like back and forth,
Yeah.
but like it wasn't anything ridiculous.
because like
For the record, she's already had me, and she has looked up like Army A Club stuff.
Oh.
Like, yeah.
you said Navy did it better, Jamie. He told me that. He said Navy is better.
We've had that conversation already.
Yeah. So the Blue and Gold Club, it was super easy. I joined the club back in like March or April. The tickets just showed up. Like they're just like, hey, here's the tickets. I'm like, oh, cool. And I was just like, I got these tickets and I sent them to you, and it worked. We got in. We saw the game. So yeah, it couldn't have been easier. I didn't even have to go on Ticketmaster. They just assigned the seats. They were like, here, pay this. Okay. Done.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
Put it on your list. If it's something you consider doing, do it. And I know we're not the first to that.
No,
to
yeah.
that list. Like,
I mean, you listen to Ross Tucker. He does it.
Right.
He does it justice.
Right.
Hopefully, you got to listen to his call. It's always great listening to his call. I do. It's one of those things. I don't want to go to live sporting events that often,
Right.
and I'm glad this was an exception. But I was thinking, I was like, man, it is so cool to watch this game on TV
so-
because of all the
so
stories
isn't
that they
it
tell.
cool when you go and it lives up to or exceeds the hype?
Right.
Like, like that's the best. Like that's the best. And yeah, like I feel that way about so many live things, and they don't all live up to it, which is the same thing with the sports. Like that's why it's fun to be all in, because you care whether it works out or not. You care whether it meets the expectations. You care about all those things. If you don't care, and I can't even wrap my head around that. Like when people don't have their mood upset because their NFL team won or lost, like I can't wrap my head
I
around that.
texted you
Like,
last weekend. I was just like, I said, I promise I will not ruin I will not let sporting events ruin my weekend and get my wife and kids mad at me because I'm just sitting around sulking. I was just like, and it's been rough. It's been rough. I mean, early November, just trying to stay calm when things weren't going great. And now 3-game losing streak for the Dolphins. Penn State's on the Rose Bowl. That's on the horizon. Miami's fighting for a playoff spot. It's just there's things coming. But Army Navy is interesting though because I have a absolutely interest in Navy winning. Like if I'm not rooting, if Penn State's not in the picture, Navy's the next one. Like Navy is my next team. That's the team that I follow closely after Penn State. But Army Navy is also a game where I was like, I'm not rooting against Army,
Right?
Like
right.
I'm not there being like, boo. You know, I was saying to Jamie, I was calling them cheaters and stuff like that. It was all fun, but like Army winning in overtime, like that didn't devastate me. Yes, I wanted Navy to win, and I would want Navy to win every game, but I'm not disappointed that Army won just because it's just so different. Because you know that both sides are moving on to things that no one else can comprehend.
Right.
And the last thing on this, probably the thing that I wasn't thinking about, but ended up being probably the coolest thing from the event that I wasn't expecting, was walking around the concourse with the cadets and the midshipmen, just like walking there with you.
Yeah.
And they're all in their
Like
dress.
seeing them and seeing some of them like with their parents and stuff,
Right.
which might for some of them like that might be the first time they've seen their parents since they like went back in the fall, you know, like and they don't have typical summers a lot of you
Right.
know, like
It's not the
right. They
same.
don't get to see their family the same. Like, oh my gosh.
Well,
like,
but and like so we were up in the upper
was
deck,
cool.
or front rows of the upper deck. They were pretty good seats.
they were real good seats.
But like, you know, and even on TV, you're just looking at these men and women in the armed forces, in the armed service, in the military. It's just, but like when you're up close, you're like, these are kids.
They're kids.
These
man.
are kids.
They are kids.
Both on the field playing the game,
Yes.
and all the
Yes.
ones in the corners of the end zone cheering wildly and doing all this awesome stuff. But then you're walking out and they're literally 18, 19, 20 years old.
Right. They're kids, and it just
Which I know people are
it's
like,
just
well,
crazy.
duh, what did you think they were? They enter these right after high school.
But like it's
But
just
it
different,
doesn't
man.
hit you until you're there to see it, because it doesn't do it just on TV. On television, they look, I feel like they look older on television.
right.
But when you see them up close, it's just like, you are fresh out of high school.
Yeah.
It's wild. Justin and I could probably talk for another half an hour about the game.
Easy.
And not even talk about the game.
Right.
We could talk about the experience. And it was quite an experience. And hopefully we'll get to do it again someday. I wish Boston wasn't next year. I wish Boston was a year or two down the road, because I don't know if we can swing Boston next
I'm
year.
absolutely going to go again, and I'm going to take Austin. The tough thing becomes like this year would have been a great year in terms of the weather for Austin.
Yeah, right. Oh.
Now, Austin, with the Penn State games this year, Austin did so much better this year with Penn State games than he's done before. So, like, I think he's hit that point where, like he doesn't ask to walk around. He wants to watch the game. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he'll let me
Finally
know when
at
he
that
needs to use
stage,
the
yeah.
bathroom or whatever. But, like, he had no interest in doing anything but kind of watching and talking about the football and stuff. And he handled the weather and the time of games and stuff much better this year. So, like, it's getting easier. But, like, man, you go to a game the second weekend in December, you are signing up for you don't know what in weather. So.
And we always wonder about that in Philadelphia. Now you're talking next year going to
Right.
Boston,
Right. Exactly.
in the second weekend in
Exactly.
December. So, yeah, we'll see. Obviously, we'll be talking about it. I would love to make it an entire family experience, because I've never been to the city of Boston. I know the game itself won't be held in Boston proper,
I think
but
like Boston can be a pain to get around downtown and stuff, but like it's cool. There's so much like history stuff. Like
Kelly's
it's
been there, but
everywhere. It's
obviously
cool.
the girls haven't been there,
Right.
and I haven't been up to New England since 2014. For my 30th birthday, I was gifted tickets to the Dolphins-Patriots game. Got to go up there with my dad and with my uncle and cousin. We went to the game, and I was an enemy in their territory, but that was awesome. Dolphins played okay. They didn't end up winning, but it was very cool. I got to walk around and see Gillette. I got to boo the Patriots on their home field. Got to wear my Cameron Wake jersey in the upper decks at Gillette, and I got my pictures taken with their people dressed up as Patriots walking around, and got to tailgate, and it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. I mean, I wish the Dolphins would have won, but I would like to go back and to see Army Navy. That would be cool. But we talked about like, what would they schedule an NFL game the next day? Would they have like a weekend
See,
doubleheader
with
of
it
Army
being
Navy
turf,
and then
like, I don't know that they wouldn't. You
or
know,
what
like,
would they do a Monday night game? Like
oh, man.
that's what I said. I was like, we could make a long week, go Friday to Tuesday, like have it be a part of a vacation.
Right.
Like I was like, we're not going to Disney World next year. That was this year, so we got some extra days floating around. So let's go up to New England, head up like
Back
Friday.
it up,
Friday.
kids. We're going to a football game or two.
Haley would punch me. Haley would be like, no. Natalie would be like, yeah, let's go. And then we'd get there and she'd be like, I am freezing.
I didn't know it was going to be cold here.
Yeah. You said we were going to a tea party. No. This is where the tea party happened. Not for you though. You've seen Hamilton. What I don't know. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, fun last 2 weeks. But now with 10 minutes left in the show, let's get to our main topic, which is NFL Week 15.
World Cup final.
So we can roll through some of these games because even if they were exciting, we
Right.
don't have a lot to say
No,
about them.
no.
Thursday night, things went as planned. 49ers beat the Seahawks 21-13. 49ers clinched the NFC West
Yes.
10-4.
Yep.
They've won a bunch in a row.
Yeah. Brock Purdy looks good within that, with that team. Honestly, he's bringing more to the table than they've had at the quarterback position all year, in my opinion. Right now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I said to you, and I'll stick by this, and we don't have time to get into it. I think they're peaking too early.
I sure hope so.
I know you do. I don't really have anything against the 49ers. I'm fine with Kyle Shanahan, most of the guys they have there now.
Yeah. No,
They did just beat my Dolphins, which makes me mad.
The only thing is that they're competition with the team I root for right now.
Right.
That's the only thing I have against them.
I love when they wear their throwbacks because that's awesome.
yes.
Seattle needs to go back to their
So
throwbacks.
I
but
was a fan of their uniform on Thursday night. Like, I don't mind the all highlighter one, but the highlighter jersey, but they still had the dark. They had
the navy
they had
pants
the navy
on?
pants.
Okay.
It was much more tolerable, in my opinion, of someone who likes those uniforms to begin with.
the Seahawks are fading though now. They're 7-7
Yeah.
and are backing into the playoffs if they get there at all. So yesterday was wacky, absolutely crazy. So I joined the Colts Vikings game in progress when it was, I think the Colts had just gone up 23-0.
Okay.
And, in our group chat with Adam, he was like, I can't watch the game. I'm like, you're missing a beat down. Because I think
Right.
then the Colts went up 30-0. Then it was 33-0 at halftime. And I had to take Natalie to a Girl Scout service project. And next thing I know, I come back and it's 36-23 or something
I
like
was
that.
thinking, I'm like, do the Vikings start pulling starters? Because so they were down 33-0 at half. They score to open the second half,
And
but the
kicked
Colts
the
went
field-
down and kicked a field goal.
Right.
So with 4 minutes left in the third quarter, they were still down
36-29. Right.
Right. And so I'm just like, all right, they're going to run out of time here. Well, nope, the Colts. And that's after a week after 2 weeks after giving up 30 some points in the fourth quarter to the Cowboys after they were down 2 going into the fourth quarter in that game.
Biggest
I
comeback
don't
in
think-
NFL
yeah.
history.
Yeah.
Biggest comeback in
Yeah.
NFL history.
I was kind of hoping for the tie because then you would have had the crazy situation for the
have
Colts
2 ties.
where 2 ties counts better than a win and a loss. Because like the way you calculate it, their win percentage would be better with 2 ties than it would be if they were 5-10. If they were
4-8-2,
yeah, 4-8-2,
which would
would be better than 5-10
interesting.
or 5-9, I guess.
Yeah, 5. Yeah, it'd be 14. So I don't even know what to say.
That's a
like,
problem, and I don't know how the Colts don't quit at this point. Like the rest of the season, like you've had crushing defeats 2 out of the last 3 weeks. I don't really know what the answer there is, but I don't dislike Jeff Saturday, and it's not all on him, but man, to be somebody who's supposed to just like get the most out of the players, even if they're not the most talented, and fight, it's not there.
So I think we can all agree that if that game is played more often than not, I don't want to say, I don't mean Colts Vikings playing each other. I mean the Colts leading 33-0 at halftime. If that's played 100 times, that doesn't happen more than what? I mean, statistically speaking, it doesn't happen in 100 times because I
Right.
believe
I'd say it probably
this.
doesn't happen like 5 times. I'd say maybe 5.
Two maybe.
Yeah.
So we saw something crazy. But what I'm trying to get at is the Vikings are not good. The Vikings are 11-3. I shouldn't say they're not good. They're good, but they're at best
Well, I think
5th or 6th in the conference.
I think they are right now
The-
maybe plus 2 or 3
Right.
point differential.
Well, they were plus 1 or 2 entering this
Okay,
game.
I didn't know if they were minus
Or-
1. I
oh,
thought
maybe
they
they
were minus
were.
1.
They
I
might
thought they
have
were
been.
minus 1.
So but okay. So if you use
yes.
that, they are a 500 team essentially.
Yeah.
Maybe a game above
Right.
500. So essentially, you're saying they should be not you. They should be statistically in this one way 7-7 about, but they're 11-3. They're 4 games above where they should be, and that'll come crashing down in the playoffs. This is a guaranteed
here's the thing.
team in the top 4.
I just don't know who. Well, you didn't say the first round. The first round, depending on who their matchup
Right? No,
is
I'm
and stuff.
not saying they're
But-
one and done because the matchup could work in their favor, but
the 3, in my opinion, the 3 best teams
there's
in the
no
NFC,
way they're beating the Eagles, the 49ers, or the Cowboys.
Right.
I mean, the Cowboys already obliterated
right,
them once.
and the Eagles
so did the
too.
Eagles.
Right, and the Niners would too.
Yeah, so the Vikings, it's the NFL, so anything can happen. If they get hot at the right time, maybe, but this is the most fraudulent 11-3 team I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, they've lost to the best teams they've played. They've lost to
I don't remember who their third loss
the
was.
Lions last week.
Okay, yeah. So Lions right now,
They-
who are good.
The Vikings should be happy that the Lions couldn't get it together at the beginning of the year because the Lions are better than them
If
right
the
now.
Lions they started 1-6.
Yeah.
If they
They're
start,
6 and,
if
they're
they start,
7-7 right now.
they start 3-4. You know, like this division's up for grabs.
Right.
now.
And the Vikings already clinched it.
Right. But
Oh man, I hope the Lions make the playoffs. Oh my gosh, I want that
so
so
here's
bad.
the thing: at 1-6, like I admittedly had kind of like jumped off the Dan Campbell. Like last year, I was like, man, he's just like too emotional. He's too rah. Like and the product on the field wasn't showing it. And I kind of came around to it, and I was scared to death about the Eagles playing there week 1, and
Well, that was a shootout,
rightfully
yeah.
so. And then for them to start 1-6, I'm like, oh no, like maybe this just aren't, and you know what, maybe this isn't working. Well,
Things change quickly.
now maybe they'll handle it better than the last time they had a coach get them to the playoffs. Jim Caldwell,
Yeah. What they went 10-6 or 9-7 and
back-to-back years,
and then fired him.
right, like what the heck?
Oh, so yeah, that's your check-in with the NFC North.
Yeah,
Well, staying in the North, but going to the other conference, the Ravens. Like I know they haven't had Lamar Jackson, but even when he was playing,
Here you
things
go.
haven't been great.
they haven't had a wide receiver score a touchdown since week 3. That's hard to do. That is hard to do. This isn't Army or Navy,
Well,
right? This
right.
is Baltimore. Like that's hard to do. I don't care who your wide receivers are. That's hard to do.
do you remember before the Chiefs went on this run? That was the joke about them. They didn't have
Yeah.
a wide receiver. Like
Yeah.
it was years before like Dwayne Bowe caught a
Yeah.
touchdown. This is Alex Smith years, and when
Right.
Andy Reid was taking over or just there the first few years when they were starting to get things rolling. Now they've won 7 straight AFC West championships. We'll get to them shortly. But Ravens lose to the Browns 13-3 in Cleveland in snow,
Yeah.
but just
Looked awful.
looked bad again. Didn't
Looked
I mean
awful.
defense was fine. Only
Yeah,
surrendered
defense-
13.
Defense honestly has looked better as the season went on.
Yeah, because the
And-
Ravens were getting exposed,
Right.
giving up these big
Right.
leads. Their defense couldn't hold it. Now the offense can't score
Right.
with or without Lamar Jackson.
Right. I had this discussion with someone a couple weeks ago, and I don't mean this like negatively. And we preach the stability so long. This feels more and more like the Andy Reid end in Philly,
For John
where-
Harbaugh.
and I just mean that as in like I think John Harbaugh is a great NFL coach, and I think he could be successful. I think maybe they need to go somewhere. Like it might be best for both to like kind of go a different route.
Well, maybe he'll leave and take Lamar with him.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, he's no Kenny Pickett. We could spend an entire episode on that tweet. Whew, that was a doozy. I know the Browns aren't technically out of it yet, but they're not going to make the playoffs.
No.
We talked about it on our show
I
a
do
month
find
ago.
myself, and I don't want to say irrationally. I mean, I guess it is rationally. Like I was rather indifferent to the Browns for a while. Now I find myself hoping they lose.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm not. I've kind of done. You're right. I would say honestly, for a while, I was kind of rooting for them because they were those lovable losers. But unlike
Yeah.
the Red Sox, who won stuff and became annoying, the Browns haven't won anything and are annoying.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
blame Joe, but no, I don't actually blame Joe.
I
But
do. It's fine.
But a month ago when we had our show the last time, we talked about the Ravens and the Bengals and how the Ravens should run away with the AFC North because the Ravens have an easy schedule and the Bengals
The
don't.
easiest. They had statistically the easiest schedule remaining of any team in the NFL.
And since then, I think they've lost all three or three of their four since we had that discussion.
Yeah.
So not great in,
They need
in
Lamar
Baltimore.
back, and they need him back soon.
I don't really have a lot to say about last night's game. I didn't see the whole thing. I did see part of it, especially at the end.
I am encouraged, like based on the way the Dolphins played last night, I'm encouraged that I think they could win all. I think they will win all three of the remaining games. Going into last night, I don't know that I felt that way. I thought, and maybe it has to do with some of the games I saw today too. But like, I thought the Dolphins played much better last night than they did the previous 2 weeks. They lost to a good team on the road, and it's unfortunate because that was a winnable game. You let one get away on the road. That's tough against the Bills. But I hope they're encouraged. We'll see.
Knowing who they play, and we've already discussed that, I hope they smoke the next three teams.
Hey,
because
you know what? This is the time to have your lull though, not
right,
starting now over the next three games.
Be like the Bucks 2 years ago.
Get hot, healthy, and that's all you need.
And then beat Buffalo
because
in the AFC Championship game.
They win their next three, or even two out of their next three, but like play really well. Let's say they win their next three.
I need them to win their next three.
I know. Let's say they win their next three, and are healthy. Who's going to want to play them? Who's going to say, "Hey, I want to cover Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill"? No one.
See, this is
and the way Christian is playing.
Wilkins.
Oh my goodness.
I know you can't blame injuries; they happen. But it's so frustrating that Tua missed that Minnesota and the first Jets game.
Yeah. Oh, they beat. Yeah.
I know the Jets game final looks ridiculous, but things had gone sideways quickly there. Yeah. But people say it's crazy, but in my mind, Tua plays in those games, they're beating those teams. Yeah. Which sucks. It sucks. Now you have to win these three games. They're winnable games. They're not. It's not like they have to play Buffalo again until the playoffs when they'll beat them.
It's hard to beat a team. Well, it wouldn't be three times. It would only be twice. Well, there you go. If you beat them again, then you would have had to beat them three times, and that doesn't happen.
Unfortunately, I have to be there again, but we'll see.
Right. Even better.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I'm happy. I think I feel like Miami's done what they needed to do this year. They need to make the playoffs now because you can't get to 8-3 and then miss the playoffs. That's not okay.
Not good.
But they've proven that they can do it. And if they could stay healthy or have a semblance of an offensive line, I feel like they could compete and stay up in the top 3 or 4 teams in the AFC. So they need to climb that ladder again, but there's potential there. I would say this game doesn't matter, but with the way the NFC South is, it technically does matter.
Right, it does. The Falcons,
the Saints
left the chance, but also the Saints, man. That draft pick's climbing now. Come on, man.
Saints get the win 21-18. Falcons Saints now both 5-9 and still technically in the hunt.
Yes.
In the horrible NFC South.
The worst division
just
of football.
really, really bad.
And it's not close.
Steelers keep their slim playoff hopes alive with a victory over NFC South opponent Carolina Panthers 24-16.
I don't want the Steelers to make the playoffs, but I really want them to get to 9-8 so that it the streak's alive.
Oh, so I'd be okay with that. I don't think they're making the playoffs at 9-8. I feel like 10-7. I think is the worst you're going to be to get in there.
If it's the streak or them making the playoffs, I'm picking kill the streak. I don't want it to go on, but I think Mike Tomlin's a good coach. I know a bunch of Steelers fans who don't like him, and that just makes me root for him.
And they have Kenny Pickett. They got all they need.
Right.
So Philadelphia went to Chicago, got the win today. Made it interesting at times.
Literally, the game's kicking off. My dad's like, "We're gonna play down to the competition today," and that's what happened. Justin Fields is good. The team is terrible, but Justin Fields is good.
If they can put weapons around him and find some
they're gonna have
semblance of
they're
an
gonna have
offensive line
they're gonna have like an absurd amount of cap space this year
and picks.
and picks. So
Yeah, so
that's
the
good.
time, now is the time because
Yeah.
Justin Fields, it seems to have clicked in the second half of this year.
Yeah.
So another offseason, hopefully get some linemen and weapons around
Right.
him and come back next year. And look, the Packers I don't think are going to be good, and Rodgers is getting worse. Fortunately for them, this is like the Miami paradox in the AFC East, where the Patriots fall off, but then Buffalo jumps up.
Right.
The Packers, I feel like, are dropping, but now are the Lions climbing? Now, the Lions don't have the answer at the quarterback, whereas the Bears do, it seems, right now.
See, but here's the thing. Like, do they?
I don't know. You're the Jared Goff hater.
Yes, but that's gone away. I don't have to hate him anymore. My fandom doesn't require me to hate him anymore.
You're like the genie
Yes,
been
yes,
released.
yes.
But yeah, so the Bears dropped to 3-11, but they're like, I know this season is lost, but I feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel for them.
Well, and I look at this from the other side. So I'm looking at the Eagles. It was one of the worst halves they played in the first half. Jalen Hurts threw 2 picks. One, it looked like the receiver and he weren't on the same page. The other one was a bad decision. But he rushed for 3 touchdowns. He ended up for throwing. Smith and Brown alone combined for over 300 receiving yards. Like, I think Brown might have had the most receiving yards he's ever had.
180 something, right?
Right,
185 or something like that.
They had great games through the air. They just didn't score through the air, but Hurts scored 3 times from like the one.
Yeah.
So actually the first one, oh my gosh, they had 5 wide receivers and they blitzed and oh my
Yeah, I
God.
saw that.
But the other two that QB sneak was working. The Bears got the late touchdown, but the Eagles got it and just didn't give it back.
Eagles tie the franchise record for wins in a season, and there's still 3 games left to go. So.
Right. And yeah, don't get me wrong. They didn't play well, but to not play well and win, they've done that a couple times this year, and they didn't always respond immediately, but they always got back. Like they've gotten back. So they've shown the lull, but that happens over the course of a long season. So be ready on Saturday.
Christmas Eve, baby.
Although that game lost a little of its luster. We'll talk about that.
So what is it with some of these bad teams giving teams a run or upsetting them? Because the Bears kept it close with the Eagles. Eagles prevailed. Texans kept it close with the Chiefs. We're actually leading.
Second straight week.
Honestly,
Texans
since the
heartbreaker.
Dolphins pulled their starters against the Texans when Miami was up 30-0, Houston has played really well.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't win any of those games.
But that's also probably for the best.
They got close to the Dolphins where I was like sweating. I was like, hey, put your starters back in. Like, this isn't college or high school. This is pro. Like, the talent ladder isn't that huge of a disparity across the board. Like, if you put in your second group, that's a big drop off for every team. Right. And the Texans took advantage of
it.
The
difference on every team is the stars. Like the other guys,
by and large, pretty even.
Right.
Pretty even.
It's stars.
Those playmakers. So last week the Texans gave Dallas all they could.
Oh my gosh, I was pulling
this week
so bad
they gave Kansas City a battle and actually was in overtime.
Right.
Before Davis Mills got strip sacked, and on the next play, the Chiefs scored. Jared McKinnon sitting on your bench, right?
He is with 30 points.
It
shouldn't matter.
You think it won't matter,
but it very well could, and that would end my fantasy season.
Yeah. So the Chiefs get the win. They clinch the AFC West for the 7th straight season, 30-24.
But my thinking there was, how many times do we see this with Andy Reid? It's never the same guy back to back weeks.
You're right.
So
that was shocking. So. Then another overtime game in Jacksonville, and this is another one of those things. The Jaguars maybe not getting as much fanfare as the Lions, mostly because the Lions destroyed them head-to-head a couple weeks ago. The Jaguars are a sneaky 6-8 after winning in overtime against Dallas today, 40-34. The Cowboys were up by 17 in the second half, couldn't hold on. A pick 6 ended it. It was not on Dak.
No.
Which, if you just I hate pick six ends the game, people see that and think Dak threw a bad interception.
No,
Dak didn't throw a bad interception.
Noah Brown tipped it to the guy
who had scored, I think, 2 touchdowns.
Noah Brown
in this
had
game.
the best game of his career until that play.
Hey, it's an Ohio State graduate. You don't know what you're going to get.
That's right.
So you got to
They'll
avoid
let you
those
down in the
Buckeyes,
end.
Always. So,
but
So the Cowboys.
The last 6 weren't on the defense, but he gave up 34 points.
Too many
to the Jaguars.
points.
Like,
too many points. The defense,
including the drive. Like, so here you go, 3rd and 10. They throw a bomb when they're trying to run out the clock, right? Jaguars get to save the timeout. That's what allowed them to call the timeout to kick the field goal to go to overtime. If they run it, they have to use the timeout. No, they might have gotten it anyway. You know what I mean? Like they may have gotten down there and gotten the field goal anyway, but they literally wouldn't have had enough time. Like they needed the timeout. But the Cowboys threw like a 40-yard pass attempt that was incomplete and to stop the clock for them, and then they had the punt.
Well, they said on the broadcast, I don't know if that was the best idea. So, that
pick was not Dak's fault. He hasn't been playing great, but although so here's my fear on this. There's no way the Cowboys, as much as I like the Rams, they're not bad. Like they're good. I don't think they lose 2 in a row. That's the problem.
Right. This is the
On the other hand, they should have lost to the Texans last week. They were only up 2 on the Colts. Now the Colts have been fighting, but aren't they? But like it's not. They blew the doors off the Colts in the 4th quarter, but that game was competitive.
Right.
The Texans, they should have lost last week. The Texans had 1st and goal at the 6 and went for it and never got in. And actually might have scored on 2nd down, but they never reviewed it. 3rd down, or like this week, they lose to the Jaguars. So they've had 3 sketchy games in a row. Like the wins kind of gloss over that the last 2 weeks. Today,
now they can just be like the Bucs in 2020 and refocus. And so I always hate when the team I root for has a big game coming up and the team they're playing in the big game loses the week before. Doesn't matter if it's Wilson, Penn State, or the Dolphins.
Right.
I don't ever want that big game to be undercut by the team losing, but you just know that other team is going to be super hyper focused because they don't want to lose 2 in a row.
Right.
You don't ever want that. So that is a little bit dangerous for the Eagles. Is that game in Dallas or is that game in
Dallas? Okay. It's in Dallas.
Okay.
It's 4:30 next week.
Oh man, Christmas Eve at my aunt and uncle's is going to be spectacular.
Okay. And the Eagles can clinch the NFC East and the 1 seed with the win.
Oh wow.
They can clinch the 1 seed with 2 games left if they win next week. Or if the Niners and Vikings lose, I think it is. But.
So yeah, I mean honestly, losing to the Jaguars is much more acceptable, 1 this year, and 2 versus the Texans.
Doug Peterson, Coach of the Year candidate. Dan Campbell is also a Coach of the Year candidate. And if one of those 2 teams makes the playoffs, I don't know how it's not the guy. Now if they both make the playoffs, that's really interesting.
I think Jacksonville is going to be a game short.
So because they play
they can still win the division,
right? Exactly. That's their path. But how bad does Urban Meyer look?
Oh God, he was a disaster. We already talked about the Lions. That they won again 6 of their last 7, get to 7-7, 500 with the Jets. Both teams a surprise this year. It's still crazy to me that the Jets are 7-7. I thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league, but when you have a great draft, and we talked about that in April, we said the Jets had a great draft as much as I hated it, and I liked Robert Saleh, so things are coming together in New York. They still have a quarterback issue. I don't think Zach Wilson is the answer. I don't think Mike White is the answer either. Obviously, Joe Flacco is not the answer, so they have an issue there. God, please don't go and get Lamar Jackson. I would be, because the Jets actually have a wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. Maybe if Elijah Moore sticks around and actually wants to play, and Breece Hall is going to be coming back from that injury, and Michael Carter looks like a good option there. So
Lamar Jackson,
So I don't want that. So please don't let that happen. But
2 other MVP caliber quarterbacks in your division. No thanks.
I was super happy for the Lions. Did you see that play? The tight end was wide open. It reminds me, not this past season, but 2 years ago when Brady Klein is a freshman for Wilson, or to get all of a sudden just be wide open, and Brad would find him and he would be running loose, and that's exactly what happened with the Lions. That's how they scored against the Jets to take the lead and end up holding on. I have more to say about this game, but we're really late, so I just want to keep running through here. Broncos got the win.
Yeah, felt bad for
Against the
McSorley,
Cardinals,
but he was
yeah.
thrown in there because McCoy got hurt. But two bad teams, and
both looking forward to the offseason,
Yeah.
both 4-10 now.
Yeah.
This game, man, I wish we had more time to talk about this
Oh
game.
my
My uncle
gosh.
probably doesn't wish we had more time to talk about this. I didn't see it happen. I watched the replay.
I didn't see
Justin
it live,
told me
but
about
I
it.
watched it. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely insane. Back and forth. Both teams had their moments where they looked okay, but the Patriots in a tie game run like the crazy lateral, who knows what's going to happen kind of play. Which you said, wait, what was the score? I said they were tied. You're like, you don't do that when you're tied. The Patriots
This
did.
is why you don't do that when
And-
you're tied.
And the Raiders picked off
The
the
lateral attempt.
a long lateral. It's like a pass, like kind of
Spot
thing.
pass?
It's what it looked like.
Just had to be
And
backwards.
he caught it and then stiff arms Mac Jones into oblivion and just runs in for the touchdown. 48 yards, walk-off touchdown.
So the
Oh my
Patriots shot to
goodness.
7-7 with the Jets. So that helps Miami. Even though they lost, both the Patriots and
Yeah,
Jets also
yeah.
lost.
I told you, based on today's results, the Dolphins' chances actually went up today.
That's why it was so frustrating last night, because the Ravens had also lost.
Yeah.
Like, I knew going into that game, Baltimore lost, so Miami could leapfrog
and those are all
them.
teams you're looking at with now.
And well, Miami has the tiebreaker with Baltimore
Right,
too, and
right.
right now they have it with New England, but not the Jets. But of course, Miami plays both of
Right,
them,
right.
so that'll take care of itself. You beat
Right.
those two,
you're not going to need the tiebreakers,
right,
and
you
you would
want-
have them. So
yeah, what a honestly, the Patriots are probably right where I thought they were going to be in this year. The Raiders are underachieving, so this is a big
And
win for them.
they could turn it around, but the Titans thing is finally coming to fruition. They're falling off. They've
Yeah, this-
beaten some bad teams, and maybe they've beaten a couple good teams, but
I think they've lost 4 in a row now.
Right.
And a month ago, people were thinking, "Oh, this Tennessee team's right back. They're sneaky."
there were
You know,
multiple 3rd and 2s today where Derrick Henry's not on the field. Like, what are you doing?
I'm not sure what's going on there. The Chargers able to win again. They are the same team all the time. Now they've gotten lucky the last few, I don't want to say lucky. They've pulled it out the last few weeks, gotten close wins. Eventually it'll come back to bite them, and they'll have close losses. Because remember, a few weeks ago they beat the Cardinals like that.
Yep.
The Dolphins game got a little too close for comfort near the end. They ended up winning that one by a little bit larger margin. But now this week they have to rely on a late game field goal to beat the Titans. But they're a sneaky 8-6, and now hold that tiebreaker over Tennessee. Of course, Tennessee's fighting for a division, not really a wild card. So I don't know if that will end up mattering in the long run, because I don't think two teams from the AFC South are making the playoffs.
No.
So the Chargers are sitting there in second place in the AFC West, but they can't win that division. Chargers are playing for the wild card. So that win over Miami was huge last week, because now the Chargers jump in front of Miami because of the head-to-head tiebreaker. Now, this was a wacky game. Bengals.
So the first half, I was like, "Oh no, this is the Bucks team that I've been expecting to pop up." Chris Godwin, Mike Evans making plays,
Looking good.
Brady throwing the ball all over the place, and next thing you know, it's just and I think they were up, and this is late in the game. The Bengals are up, and Burrow only had 199 passing yards, which is a lot of passing yards, but it's not like they were throwing all over him. But Brady got sack fumbled, and they have the ball in the red zone. They have, I think Brady threw an interception today.
Turnovers are the great equalizer.
I don't know who they gave the fumble to, but Brady went to hand it off to Fournette, and Fournette was maybe a yard farther away, and it looked like he threw it into the stomach of Fournette. He never had it. So Brady might have had 2 or 3 turnovers pinned on him today, and you know how those go. They're not all his fault, but
So the Bengals look like
they're
they got
coming
it.
to form,
I thought they were going to be. I think at the beginning of the season I said about 10-7. They're already 10-4.
Yeah.
They're looking good. They could win the AFC North again.
Yeah, they're up a game now.
But they just beat Kansas City.
So they're up a game. I want the Ravens to get right, because the Ravens and Bengals play in week 18.
You want that to matter.
I want it to be for the division.
Austin doesn't. Austin wants Cincinnati to keep rolling.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because now they have a game lead, and they already beat them once, right?
I think the Ravens.
Did the
won that
Ravens
game.
beat them
Right,
earlier
so the
when
Ravens?
they were okay?
The Ravens would have the tiebreaker if they
Okay.
beat. So if the Ravens can stay within a game, they win that.
Right
last
now
game,
they're
they
a
win the
game back,
division.
but they have the
But
tiebreaker.
I don't know the way the Ravens have been playing. I don't know that they can stay within a game.
But the Ravens have simple
Yes.
schedule.
Yes, they do.
And they've lost every one of those games
Right,
so far.
exactly.
So the Sunday night game is Giants Commanders, and this one honestly surprises me. I think Washington's better than New York. Giants
Yeah.
are up 14-3.
Well, and this is big because I think I'm trying to think. Like it might be if the Commanders lose, I think Dallas can still clinch the playoff spot today.
Oh, really?
Something like that. They could have if they won. They ripped defeat from the jaws of victory.
It's funny. I feel like as an outsider,
I'm rooting for a tie here because like they tied, and the Commanders have not played a game in between.
right?
They played 2 weeks ago. The Commanders had a bye, and then they're playing again.
And then the
this week.
Giants lost last
They
week
got
to the Lions, right?
smoked by the Eagles.
Oh, the
week.
Eagles. That's right.
Yeah.
The Eagles. Yeah, the Detroit beat them 2 weeks ago or
Right.
3 weeks ago. Wow, was that 3 weeks ago? That's crazy. I could be making that up too. I don't know. As a rooting interest, I feel like I go for the Giants, and I say that's because of Saquon, but like Jahan Dotson plays for Washington, and I don't know. I like Ron Rivera. I don't have anything against Brian Dable either, but I don't know. I just feel like I pull for the Giants, but I think Washington's the better team. But Giants have the lead right now, 14-3. So, but that's gonna be it for us here. I know we ran late, but we missed the last couple weeks, so we wanted to make sure we covered everything in college football and personal lives. Army Navy was huge, and then this week in the NFL. But we will.
Giants have a defensive or a special teams touchdown.
Do they?
Yes.
Are you playing against them?
Yes, it's their defense and their kicker is who I'm playing against. So I'm up
Jeez.
18 and a half
Oh,
with a half.
Are you playing
of
my
ball.
dad?
I am playing your dad.
oh my
Yes.
gosh. Hey, I had a huge win this week though in fantasy. Most points, excellent. Doesn't matter because I'm not in the playoffs, but couldn't beat my sister-in-law when it mattered last week.
That's why I was saying to you, I was like, can you imagine if I had
if this was next week,
Hurts and Brown and
against
against
Dak
your
and
dad
CD.
having Dak and CD when the Eagles play
Yeah,
each
it's
other.
too
in-
bad that like the Eagles Cowboys game wasn't today, or you weren't playing him until
Right,
next
right.
week. Yeah, it's too bad that didn't come
like
together.
that would be intense. So.
Yeah, well, he's actually way worse off entering his birthday. Like I entered my birthday today. My birthday was awesome because the Dolphins had already lost. I had to put that in the rearview mirror, and then everything that happened today was great. Like not football
No,
related.
yeah,
I mean, Dolphins had already lost. So I was just kind of watching to watch, but he's going to be entering his birthday with the Cowboys losing in overtime and possibly losing in fantasy, and not just losing in fantasy,
But
losing
losing
to
to
you
me
in
in
fantasy. The only thing worse would probably be losing to, well, I don't know. You guys are all kind of in the same
Right,
area
right.
because Adam, you, and his brothers.
Right.
Like I feel like
So I feel like on pure just isolated, he wants to beat Adam more than he wants to beat me or his brother. Maybe not the brother. But when you tie in, I say recent, it's relative, but recent success in fantasy football, that pushes up
yeah.
your
I feel like
your uncle.
he
and,
wants to
and-
knock you and Rich down.
Yes,
so
yes.
seeing you beat him, he's not going to be happy about that. So.
especially because my team was like me. As Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown go, so goes my team.
Yeah, which
So.
could be problem for you if you make the championship
Oh,
game and they're not playing full games or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes.
Who's your backup?
I don't know that I have one on my roster right now.
Oh yeah, so I scored. Last I checked, I had 154 points, which would have beat everyone.
So I beat your dad, and
easily.
he just puts in a waiver claim for
every quarterback. Yes.
Oh,
So
man.
yeah, I was expected to have a great year in fantasy football this year because I had Jonathan Taylor and Dalvin Cook, two of the consensus top 5 running backs, and you see where that got me.
Right. Yeah, I actually played both my keepers today, and they didn't have terrible games. They had probably the best week I've had from the combined two of them, and they didn't do great, but they didn't give me like single-digit points. So
Obviously, we're not going to have a show a week from now because that is Christmas Day, and we're going to be spending that time with our family. I don't know if we will have a show in between the holidays. There's a possibility. I haven't talked to anyone about it. Justin's not around. I don't know if we'll try something remote, if I'll have someone in studio. Right now, the schedule is just to have it New Year's Day night, January 1st. So 2 weeks from now, that evening, we'll probably talk we'll talk NFL, but we probably will be getting ready for Penn State's Rose Bowl game. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth than we did here tonight, and cover NFL, which at that point will have been week 17. So the penultimate week of the season will be finishing up. We'll have a couple games left to go, but playoff picture will certainly have come into focus, and hopefully my Dolphins can beat the Packers and the Patriots in these next 2 weeks before we talk. So yeah, I keep forgetting that Dallas Philly is on Christmas Eve, and we should know that because we were going to go to the game if it was pretty much any other week, maybe.
Right.
Could you imagine if we went to Army Navy and 2 weeks later we flew to Dallas on Christmas Eve to watch? I would never talk to my family, or my family would never talk to me ever again.
We'll turn it into a vacation. Like you said, we're not going to Disney World. We're going to the Eagles.
Going to Cowboys Eagles on Christmas Eve.
Daddy, I thought you liked the Dolphins. I do.
I
Get
do.
in the car.
Get in the car. We're going to Dallas. One of these days. Well, but my dad got screwed out of going to Jerry's World twice now this year because we wanted to go to Dallas, Philly.
Right.
Any week, but what week? This week, yeah, week 16.
He distinctly said, as long as it's not Christmas,
yeah,
like
I mean, literally, like we were like, if it's Thanksgiving, we'll go.
No.
Not going Christmas, not happening. And then for about a week, maybe not quite a week, Penn State's going to the Cotton Bowl.
Right.
Penn State's going to the Cotton Bowl. So my aunt and uncle, I think, had booked rooms. My dad was all set. He told us, it was like, hey, have a fun 4 or 5 days down in Dallas. Go see AT&T Stadium. Go watch Penn State hopefully win the Cotton Bowl. That's great. And then all the stuff hit the fan in college football. Penn State's going to the Rose Bowl. And my aunt and uncle said they didn't have a great time out at the Rose Bowl.
Well, I know
so they weren't going to go again.
It's always a little tough.
Yeah, you're flying out to California. So
it's a longer flight, more expensive flight. Like, it's not like downtown. There aren't necessarily like hotels like right there. Yeah. Parking's not great. Like, yeah. It's almost like that stadium was built like a long time ago.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, sorry we missed a couple weeks. We're back now. I know we're not going to be on next week, but I think everyone can understand Christmas takes precedent to spend time with our family. We will be back in at least 2 weeks, maybe something in between. If I can make that happen, I will let everyone know. But we hope everyone has a safe, happy, healthy Christmas, and we will talk to you in the new year. Again, happy early birthday to my dad, and happy birthday in advance to my cousin Christine, and happy birthday to Ansley and Gabby, sharing their day with me today.
Yeah, there we go.
So, anything else from you, Justin?
No, just happy birthday again, and
yes, thank you.
Have a good week, and everybody have a good time next weekend.
Yeah, thank you again to my wife and family for the presents and the great day today, and thanks to Austin for the awesome artwork. And I think that's it. So this wraps up episode 364 of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. We will be back with you again in about 2 weeks. Everyone have a great holiday.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop. You can watch each weekly episode live on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. You can also rate and review us on many of these platforms as well. We'd love to hear from you. Send your email to the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is a part of the JMNJR Radio Network, home to other productions such as the Bulldog Hour, Tangents with Friends, and Nat Chats with Dad. Until next time.